Hi, I'm Michaela, and I'm a junior in Course 1, focusing on the environmental track. I'm originally from Charlotte, North Carolina, and for this project, I'm going to be working on analyzeBoston. So the project that I will be working on for my 100 final project has to do with the field of civic data science. Civic data science is a relatively new term that's honestly only come to light really in the last couple years. And what it really has to do with is combining open data with the public. So basically, cities all around the world have tons of data that they collect, from 311 calls to how many people are using public transit to where their trash collectors go each day. And the public has a lot of collective brain power and also a lot of time. So then right now there's been a huge push to have cities release data so the public can do a lot more with it than paid city employees could do. Because as we all know, local governments aren't exactly the richest around. So they struggle oftentimes to have enough people to work on all this data. So Boston's one of the cities that's really leading this curve, along with Chicago and Washington, D.C., among others. And they've recently launched in the last couple of months what they're calling their Open Data Hub. So they put up a lot of data sets that have to do with a variety of things that are going on in Boston. And they're asking the public to do what they want with them. So right now they've actually got this challenge going on called the Open Data Challenge. And they've basically asked city employees to put up some project ideas to inspire people to use this Open Data Hub and see what they come up with. So what I'd like to do is work on one of these projects to hopefully get something useful out of the 100 final project as well as for my own personal learning. So right now I'm stuck deciding between exactly what data sets and what project I'd like to focus on. So here are three of the projects that have been proposed. The first one has to deal with Boston's carbon footprint. So it's looking at buildings in the Boston region and trying to figure out how they can become more carbon neutral, as that's one of the long-term Boston city goals that Mayor Marty Walsh has proposed. The second one has to do with relating open data to specific neighborhoods. So as we're all aware, Boston has very strong neighborhood connections, and neighborhoods are not created equal. So they're trying to find connections between the data sets and neighborhoods. And the last one's pretty simple. It's just telling a story through data. So we've seen that to some extent in this class, but also just for personal interest, I'm sure you've seen on the Boston Globe or the Washington Post or the New York Times. They have data visualizations that really tell a story. And so that's what they're trying to do, but with the Boston local data. So the technologies that I'm planning on using for this are, for one, JavaScript. And specifically, I'd like to look at the D3 library. So the D3 library is really intended for data visualization and is very powerful and very customizable. And it's also not something that I'm very familiar with. So that's a risk that is associated with this project. D3 is pretty well documented online, and I've had some experience with it, but I've also found it to be kind of confusing and complex at times. So that's definitely something that I'm going to be needing to spend a lot of time on if I do anything sort of complicated or customized with D3, which I'm hoping to do. Another thing that I'm planning on using is probably R to some extent, as it's a much more powerful statistical programming language. And in addition, depending on what track I decide to go and what specific project I decide to pursue, I may attempt some sort of machine learning, which would mean something sort of like a DigitalOcean droplet or something like that, just to make the computation go faster. Other risks that I can see is just not having complete enough data to really complete whatever project I decide. There's a lot of data sets out there, and right now I'm almost stuck deciding between too much data. But once I decide on a particular project, I may wish that I had more data or find the data has more gaps in it than I would have otherwise preferred. But I think all of those are resolvable, and I'm excited to see where this project goes next.